How you guys feeling? Hope you guys liked my conversation with Ashley last night. Wanted to go live for a minute, partially to show off my head, because I got this thing. This is one of those Amazon purchases, and I'm still trying it out. So like I need it to where I need it tucked in, so then that's over here. This is one of those head wraps that I can pull down like a face mask, so I can use it when it's fucking freezing. But it's also I also mainly want it as a head wrap like this, for both sweat and when I'm on a job site. I'd like to have something like this on, protecting my head, because I got to put a helmet on. I got to put my hard hat on in construction, and then what happens is that your hair gets shuffled around up there. You know, everything just moves around with the way the helmet sits, and then you take off your hat, and then you've just got this fuzzy mess sitting on top of your head, right? So you've seen me wearing the bandana. This is to replace the bandana. And it's one of those basic Amazon purchases. I just looked through it, and I was just like, I looked at the art design, I say like, okay, if I get that when Amazon comes, then I think I'm gonna like it. And I got that, and I like it. So yes, I'm sitting here just thinking about all the wild reconciliations. Like, if you do not have the ability to reconcile between conflicts, then you're going to get manipulated by conflicts you would rather not participate in. And so, you also can look at the world and just live in an intellectual place with it. That's also a thing, is just living in an intellectual place in the world, where you can rationalize the good or the evil of it. You could be some motherfucker who just meditates, right? And I'm not making fun of a couple of people I know that have a great deal of wisdom through meditation, right? But, and I mean, because I meditate, but I mean only meditates, right? Per se. But for many people, they're in a limited position with their one way that they do their consciousness thing. Right? Because you can go back and forth on an issue from a position, or you can go back and forth on an issue from both positions. And I'm talking about once you get to the binary, right? Everything has a natural binary somewhere in its complication. And then many, many variables of that binary that all combine to make it look like you have more than two choices, because you do, but you have individual yes or no choices that are stacked up into a mix. And what we do is that we've lived in a world where they have pre-established an entire narrative of yeses and nos for you to agree and co-sign with. This is like what happens when you sign any contract, when you accept the Bible as a law in your heart, right? Like all these things, and all of a sudden you've now pre-agreed to certain things, and people will be capable of cognitively trapping you. And if you don't see your own cognitive trap, you get cognitively trapped from your point of view as well. You may see it in them, but you don't see it in yourself, which is most people that get into the engagement of the fight. Now, we got to be debating amongst ourselves. There has to be that level of breaking out and being rude towards one another. Right? Because the loudest voices are very ignorant, and that ignorance breeds hostility. And the hostility has to be met in kind, right? And depending on whether they're going to engage with you for what you have said and done, which depends on the quality of your engagement, not the level of hostility the engagement is. You might have their attention long enough to turn things into a more civic debate. And if it is your intention to drive the conversation from hostile to civic, right? An attempt to see if you can, because like, I think a lot of people are making the mistake of waiting for people in the open space to be like civil and things like don't wait for that. If that comes at the efforts of motherfuckers like me doing what I am talking about right now, right? Which is what makes X the interesting platform that it is, because X is effectively this format. It's fucking ugly. Everybody's got all sorts of ugly shit that they said, but guess what? In that time and place, it sounded just right. And if you don't know how to rationalize the time and place and acknowledge when change has occurred, right? Because ultimately, there's nothing to respond to until they narrow it down. Whether you're convinced Trump is a rapist, whether you're convinced that Iran is a peaceful state, you know, whether you're convinced of all of these fucking things, you know, of whatever the fuck you're convinced of, right? Because people can't be so honest to say, well, I'm convinced by something, right? Now you've explained a standard by which you can debate me. If I say I am convinced, that word means something, right? It means that I came to a rationalized conclusion in my mind. That's all that it means. It has nothing to do with facts, nothing to do with the actual truth and proving of reality. But because nobody wants to admit that they are convinced, we have no room for argument. Nobody wants to say they're convinced. It's not a strong enough statement. It's not a firm enough ground. And you want the clout of being the prophet. You want to be the one who knows what's up. That's what it means to be a prophet in the Bible, which is what they want you all to emulate. You know, and it becomes an intelligence test. And then idiots will call you a prophet because they just think that God blessed you with a voice in your head, which may be true, but not what's going on. And hello, all of you guys. So, who the fuck do you care about? Is it entirely selfish? Would you be lying to yourself if you never got into an argument just to defend yourself and your selfness, right? And these are the things that make people into the demonized. Naturally, they are going to lump in some shit, right? Like, I promise you, Trump raped somebody, whether he did or didn't, in the political sphere, it will just turn into Russiagate. And then somebody's going to go down for Russiagate. And then somebody's going to go down for Rapegate. And the people in power are above suspicion. Fauci still sits where he sits. Perhaps disgraced, but, you know, he's still a free man walking around. It's up to his community to make consequences for how he ordered people to live. It was his orders, you know, he's the science guy informing the public. If he had said, all right, we're wearing masks as a precaution, we're doing some further tests, we're going to stick with this for now, but we got to make sure, because this is awful, making you wear a mask. Just wear it for now. We're doing fucking tests. And when he says that, and if he was actually, like this is what people imagine that's what it's like. But that's not what the fuck it's like back there. They don't want to fucking do that at all. The whole reason why they just changed psychedelic law is because they weren't fucking doing that at all for that science either. It's the same reason why an investigation turns up empty. They give an investigator a limited scope of fucking research. And then you fucking think you know fucking something because of how it fucking turned out in government. It makes you look all so asinine. The assumed levels of fucking trust. If you can't straighten out your own house, you're never going to straighten out that house. You know, you've got judges in the Epstein files, okay? So, you got nothing in that respect, right? So, the only thing that matters is what you make of yourself. That's the only thing that matters until you've made something of yourself. Then you're able to be a better impact on the world. The effect goes out in hardcore kind of ways, to the point where your heart feels it. You know, if I speak to somebody on X, I'm like, does that thing I just say become so profound or so infuriating that it either makes the world a better place or a worse place because someone in power found out and decided to come straight to me to respond to it? And did I say the right thing or the wrong thing when they decided to come straight to me? Right? That's why a podcaster fucking stops for a hot minute and then comes fucking back like that. Suspiciously. Drop of a hat. Pretending like, it's my private life, it's none of your business, don't worry about it, everything's fine. Big smile on my face. But you notice that they stopped talking in certain themes. You don't notice it at first because they're covering current events and you haven't heard their flip on things. They haven't been upfront that in that time they went through changes. Probably because those changes were forced by the forces that were very interested in what they had to say on their very lucratively endorsed stages. And this is a threat that can happen to any fully commercialized platform, right? The ones that are way up there operating on a certain professional level that has all sorts of, you know, it's invested in. It's got good advertisers. And other company type things going on. The business in and of itself has something to sell. There's merchandise and media that goes on for money. Anyway, we have to be careful about the paranoia of who we suspect and what we suspect them of, and you have to have a little bit of fair game, right? It gets harder because when somebody pops up out of somewhere, we don't necessarily know if they were fed in. You have to find out the backstory, right? Because you may just like someone as well because, man, they literally said all sorts of shit that no one's supposed to say, right? But that's not really the measure of it. That's just time has changed. They're shifting along with the revelations. All sorts of things get revealed. How many people thought certain things in the 1930s when all of a sudden it was real? Oh my God, see what the Nazis really are, right? Because, you know, they didn't have a reference point for Hitler in Hitler's time. They had to, like, if you watch the Napoleon movie that they just put out, the closest thing you get an idea of for that is one of the guys saying, oh, he's just like Caesar, right? So was for the last 2,000 years, the Caesar effect? You're like Caesar, you're like an emperor, right? And now everything is you're like Hitler. That's what makes all of this kind of fascinating. Right? You have to understand how history repeats itself. Granted, I have no idea if that movie was completely bullshitting, but I think the French Revolution at those particular periods of time were documented on the record and such. It's part of the reason why they were able to make a film in the first place. And it's still just a gaslight. You know, people that don't know as much as everyone else and a selected leader. Like, when things are coming down in their system, they're going to preserve an institution that's going to make all the major acquiesces to get the media off their back, to get the justice system off their back, to keep a certain amount of valuability, right, as an institution in the crossover, right? And it takes a very careful breakdown and reconstruction that doesn't pull the entire rug out under their operation. You want to talk about rigging elections and you don't want to talk about the Society of Cincinnati? Don't talk to me. Right? Operation GCD, shout out. Anyway, I'll catch you guys later. I'm gonna go pump some iron or some nonsense.